Oh, here. Okay. So yeah, this is supposed to be a pretty open discussion format. I don't have anything prepared in particular. So from what I understand, um, this should just be an open session for any sort of questions y'all have for software engineering interviewing, trying to find a job, etc. To give some sort of context, I went to Duke University. I graduated in 2021. So I studied CS and math there, and now I work as a software engineer at DoorDash. I've been working here for the past almost 2.5 years now, and I work on it's mainly as a backend engineer focused on developing, customer relation products, and sort of loyalty products here at DoorDash. So yeah, I can answer any sort of questions you may have about what's the best way to kind of approach interviewing for a job in general, finding jobs, getting referrals, uh, etc. How to prepare for those as well, and kind of what to expect for interviewing at any of these sort of like tech companies. So yeah, I'll leave it up to anyone here to ask any questions that they may have, and then we can sort of discuss and just have an open conversation from there.
All right, I'll give a crack.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
Thanks for taking the time, Eric, to chat. I really appreciate it. My question is, well, this is just the first one that came to mind.
Yep.
Currently, I'm in the stages of a software engineering interview with SpaceX. Now, I've got experience in that sort of realm doing aerospace slash defense over the summer and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But specifically, the role is for, they sprung this on me during the interview that it's actually for a site reliability engineering, um, as opposed to traditional software engineering where it's somewhere on the stack.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, mobility from that in the industry to, more traditional software engineering? My particular interests are in lower level software because I'm ECS.
Mhm.
Uh, what were your thoughts on that in terms of what you see as a normal career progression from that kind of position?
Ah, I see. Okay, that's actually very interesting. Yeah, SRE is very different, but it's very important. It's very important. So I'm assuming like when you're applying for a lot of software engineering roles, a lot of times you think like product engineering, right? So as you mentioned, somewhere on the stack, right? So like back-end engineering or something like front-end engineering. You mentioned you're a bit on the lower level side of things. So I guess that's more so closer to the back-end engineering side of things. Honestly, I would say like SRE, and I'm not sure if the SpaceX SRE is related at all to, let's say, infrastructure engineering at all, but that's basically almost as low level as you can kind of get, right? Because when you're working as an SRE engineer, you're working on it depends on if they also have SRE working on, like, for example, infrastructure, but you're also working on things like deployments, the reliability of the system architecture and everything of the entire company. So I think that's a pretty important role to have. You might not get as much product experience, like, okay, like developing specific like tools, products, and that sort of realm of engineering, but you will learn a lot about how to keep a company kind of at scale um properly. So I think that is actually a really important thing long term for to be a good software engineer. Yeah. I think SRE is very important just for like company health and stability in any sort of software company. So yeah, but it's
Cool.
definitely not a traditional like software eng role where you're building like a product with a product team, etc.
Yeah, that's sort of what I gathered, and that's what my most of my experience has been, in the more traditional spaces. So it was a bit of a shock, and try and place what that sort of where that sort of sets you up for.
Mhm.
Thinking down the road has been a bit interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, but like SRE, like I think they at least at DoorDash they deal a lot with like, oh hey, like things are down. How do we best like solve it when things are down? How do we best build our infrastructure to handle these sort of things? And honestly, on like a large like system design scale, those are the most important things when it comes to, I think, software. Um, at a certain level, software development, like product wise, a lot of times you're just thinking about writing business logic and stuff. But when you think about like site reliability and like our infrastructure engineering on a grand scheme of things, then you really start thinking about things in scale. And I think that's the cool thing about SRE. So definitely no problems with, I think, exploring a role like that. Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, of course. Anyone else have any sort of questions about, software career in general? Again, super sort of like open thing here. Anything.
Yeah, I had a question. So I'm also a computer science and math major.
Hmm.
Um, and I was just curious, like going into a career in software engineering or like submitting applications and like that. Like, how have you like emphasized your like math experience, or like how have you kind of like used that to maybe differentiate yourself from somebody who only has like computer science experience?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think it depends on the company that's interviewing or what kind of interview questions that they're asking, honestly. So if you're interviewing at a company that just asks you coding questions, I think most of the times they honestly won't look too much into your background, right? It'll get you to the resume screen that you have computer science and math experience, but at the end of the day, what really matters is kind of like your performance in the coding interview. What I think would help though is if there are a few, for example, behavioral or hiring manager rounds, which a lot of the time is the case, right? So either you have to talk to a manager or like an engineer will also ask you some sort of questions about your background. And if you from there can kind of get your math experience in with computer science experience, then I can think and give you a little bit of an edge. But in terms of just doing a coding interview that they're asking you leak code, or system design, actually, you guys are probably interviewing for like intern and entry level roles, so probably not system design. Then I think at that point, it really doesn't matter what degree you have. It's just answer the question properly in the way that they asked you. But yeah, I think that kind of experience mainly excels in the whole behavioral aspect and the resume selection process as well. But
Okay.
beyond,
Yeah, thank you.
of course. And I assume everyone here goes to Duke, yeah? Oh, awesome. We got grad students here and undergrad, or what are we doing with here?
Oh, I'm undergrad, senior.
Senior undergrad. Oh, okay, okay,
Same
nice.
here.
Nice. So I'm curious, how has the current interview process or like recruiting process been for everybody? I'm assuming, there were layoffs in the whole tech sphere like a year back or so. So has things recovered since then? I don't really have a good grasp on that.
Well, I can answer that by comparing it my sophomore recruiting year, junior recruiting year, and then now.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Go for it.
just in pure numbers, I think in sophomore year I started sending out internship applications with nothing on my CV, right? No previous experience at all.
Yeah, yeah.
I must have sent about 30 or 40 applications out, and I got maybe 5 or 6 interviews from
Uh-huh.
different companies and
Okay.
like big companies too, Microsoft, Dropbox, yada yada.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah.
Junior year, I've sent about 100 and I
Uh,
got one interview.
One interview. Okay.
And now I've sent about 200 and I've got one interview. So I
Oh,
would
okay.
call it, in a word, dry.
Dry. I see.
Yeah, at least in my experience, it's saturated and there just aren't as many positions. And so it's not, I always joke, it doesn't feel like it's the best time to graduate. I don't
Yeah,
know if anyone
yeah.
else can back me up or has a different perspective, but um, yeah, it's unfortunate to say the least.
I see. I
Yeah,
see.
I was gonna say it's been similar for me. My sophomore year, I probably sent out 20 applications. I wasn't like too like I guess like worried about it, and I only got one. I got one interview. But then my junior year, I had a similar thing where I probably sent out about 100 applications, and I also only got one interview, and it was a different one from the company that interviewed me my sophomore year.
I see.
Um, but then this year, I like similar. I'm not sure how many I've sent out, but I haven't gotten any interviews yet.
I see. Yeah. What about finding referrals for you guys? Have you guys been trying that? Because I know from my experience, you know, having a referral is usually like, well, you give you a much higher chance. So what has your guys' approach been to doing that?
That's a good question. I've been trying on the referral track, and so far I've managed to get one at Apple, which has been great, but I've heard
Okay.
nothing from them. And I got one at Meta, but they're not really hiring right now.
Right, right, right.
That doesn't help me very much. And I've been the other one I've been really going for is Nvidia, but every alumni I've reached out to at Nvidia has ghosted me. Um, so that's one of the questions I wanted to ask actually was
Yeah.
your experience in best leveraging the alumni network that they love advertising. Because I mean I did the Pratt alumni mentoring program thing, and I'm interested in, like I said, like low level software, maybe even hardware stuff. And they
Yeah,
just
yeah.
with someone who does like blockchain or something. So it's not that wasn't particularly helpful avenue.
I see.
And cold calling people doesn't really have a great hit rate. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit rough. I know there's not like one answer that solves everything, but
Yeah, I was never good at getting referrals too. Like, okay, so when I got my job here at DoorDash, I don't know if they're even hiring new hire roles right now. They might be doing it for intern, but like I just applied randomly online. Like I think when I was graduating, it was like right after like, you know, COVID and stuff. So things are just recovering nice and well. So you get a bunch of things, as you mentioned. That was probably around your sophomore year, honestly, about
yeah,
2021, right? So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So that was a great year. So tough to say from there, but I will say that when I first joined, right, I also got, well, I think I also got a bunch of messages from like Duke, like undergrad students, like through LinkedIn. And you know, at first, yeah, I did refer like a bunch of people. So maybe like LinkedIn is a decent spot to start with, just like messaging people, alumni. I'm sure you might have tried that already, or
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
thing. But here's the thing. It's like I think so when I joined the company, I was so excited, you know, as an engineer, like, oh, this is awesome, like I have a new role and whatever. And so then people like under from Duke were like asking, oh, hey, like, can I get a referral? I was like, oh, sure, like I'd be happy to help, right? But you gotta understand, like now that I'm like a year and like 2 years in, it's just like I'm so busy with like my work and stuff. Like I see a bunch of requests on LinkedIn. I barely even open them. So yeah, it's I think it's like yeah, it is a good try to message people on LinkedIn, but I think for a lot of the time, people will kind of just ghost you, mainly because they're just so busy, caught up in their like own work and their own world, etc. So yeah, you might get lucky here and there, but reaching out to LinkedIn is one possibility, but it might not get you that many sort of hits. I would say, do they still have those career fairs at Duke? I remember we used to have like Tech Connect or something.
Yes. They had Tech Connect and it was a madhouse. We had the
Oh,
line stretched out of Penn Pavilion all the way down to BC just to get into
mhm.
the building and like around BC. Um,
Yeah.
I managed to get in straight away, got my resume to NVIDIA and SpaceX, and haven't heard from them since. But SpaceX called me back completely independently. Um, like they must have gotten 500, 900, I don't even know how many. It was insane.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah, because
From
I was
everyone
gonna
I've
say, like,
heard, they haven't really contacted anybody.
I see, I see. So yeah, I would have said yeah, Tech Connect would have been pretty cool, but I guess there's a lot of people on the market right now searching, right? Everyone wants to study computer science these days and find a job there, so it's kind of
Exactly.
tough. So what else? We can do LinkedIn sort of like messages for referrals. You can do like things like Tech Connect. I'm not sure if Duke offers any sort of, you said you were a part of some sort of like alumni like mentor program. That wasn't super helpful either.
Pratt has a thing like that, and it sounds really cool, and I think it can be, but it's totally up to how they match you. And if they don't match you with someone in the field you want to go to,
I
it's
see.
only so helpful. The other one I've been trying to do is go on the alumni directory and pull up their emails. Um,
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
send
Yeah.
them direct emails. Maybe, but and that's probably got a bit of a higher hit rate than LinkedIn. But even then, if they're gonna help, they're gonna help. If they're not, then if they don't have time, they don't have time. No matter how you send them something.
Right, right.
Um, I think a large part of it's just you got to be a bit lucky. You got to know someone who knows someone who knows someone, and
Yeah, that's a thing too. Like It depends. I know when I was in Duke, there was like a lot of different of these like social clubs, like Catalyst and stuff. You ever heard of that before? I
Rings
don't
a
know if that
bell. Rings a bell.
rings a bell. Yeah, but for those, it's like I don't know if you have like friends or stuff as well that have, upperclassmen that have interned somewhere before or etc. Then yeah, that's also another avenue to kind of
Yeah, yeah.
go looking.
The
Yeah,
other one I'm trying to go on is try and get profs to help me. And
professors. Yeah.
if I can, I know of a couple who are particularly well connected and
Hmm.
can try and get on their good graces, and maybe they'll help me out somehow. So we'll see. That's a bit of a longer con. So we'll see what happens there. Um,
Yeah, yeah. No, that you gotta hustle no matter what, right? Everybody's doing
yep.
their little hustle on their side, you know? It's a big rat race out there to trying to find a job these days, I feel like. So whatever you
Oh,
can
yeah.
do, it's good.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's also, I feel there's also a bit of pressure to make sure it's the right kind of position that sets you up in the right direction. Because I mean, I'm trying to decide now, do I want to go down the hardware track or the software track, and where within those? And I think a large part of it is setting oneself up. Maybe having if there's a longer term goal, making sure you're heading in that direction and not going backwards. You know, um, but like you said, it's a big old hustle. So who knows?
Right, right, right. Yeah, makes sense. What about Fan and Arthur? I don't know if they're still here, but you have any questions about the whole process, or where are you guys along in the whole software engineering interview process? Any sort of tips I could relay on to you if you have any sort of questions?
Yeah, I can have a small question. So my situation is kind of different from um like others. So I'm a graduate student
Mhm.
and I'm also an international student. So when searching job, um like we not only need to look for the like companies who open software engineering jobs positions, we also need to find some companies that would be willing to provide sponsorship after graduation.
Yeah, for
So
yeah.
yeah, so that makes things like just harder and more miserable. So
Yeah.
um yeah, my question is that from your point of view, so like just in DoorDash or like other tech companies,
Mhm.
what's the hiring count, like head count for the hiring for like that would provide sponsorship for the new grad? So I'm looking for new grad.
I don't think they have any sort of quota for like students who need sort of sponsorship. I will say that it is these days it is very, very hard to land a role like at certain companies. Like, they'll take these are just random numbers, right? But like they'll take, for example, an intern class of like 60 or so, which means that they can only extend what, like 120 to 150 offers. And then
Mm-hmm.
out of those, it's like thousands and thousands, thousands. I don't think they really have any quota on sponsorship. You'd have to ask some HR representative. I have no clue on this, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think for most like the major big tech companies, like
Mhm.
they don't hire anymore like recently. So that makes things like worse. So for small company or like medium size, they don't really provide that sponsorship. So
Yeah, I see.
so we cannot even apply though. So and a big problem for me is when I apply to a job, I haven't got a chance to go to the interview part. I was just rejected at the like CV applying, like just like not even OA at all. Like most of my classmates here had you like in the graduate study, so they face the same problem. So yeah.
I see. Have you had anyone to review your resume or anything like that?
Yeah. So I asked for help from the I think it's still career service. So like a career coach has reviewed my resume and gave some ideas like suggestions on that.
I
Yeah,
see.
but yeah, I
Yeah.
think I should find someone like really into tech companies to help me review, right?
Yeah, you guys can send your resume to me. I'll help you review them.
Mhm.
Because like I think it's important that yeah, if you're getting stuck on the resume screening section, there are certain things that you can definitely do to I don't know, just improve it. I'm not sure if like the careers I don't know who the career center coach is necessarily, but I think
Mhm.
yeah, give your you can send your resume to me. And I'll give you some sort of edits and some sort of tips from a perspective as someone who's like worked in like a tech company for the past few years, kind of what we're looking for in general. So yeah, I'll be happy to help you just review that a little bit quickly, see if I can add any sort of extra tips. Maybe I'll give you an extra hit or two. Not so sure,
Mhm.
but can't hurt, right? So
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate
of course, of course. Yeah, it's only just the few of you lot in here, so got enough time to kind of do those small little things. Yeah.
So I guess I'm the youngest here because I'm just a sophomore. Um, so I was wondering like how I guess all of y'all kind of just broke into your careers, got in that first internship, as well as like, what I could be doing now, like for my resume and building skills and etc.
I can start first. So I think sophomore. Okay, so you're in a good time right now. You're looking. I'm assuming for internships. That's a good start. Yeah, the earlier start, the better. I think to get interviews, you just want to do. If you don't have experience, you just want to do side projects, right? So you could even like scrape some of the projects that you've done in class and just pretend that they are actual projects, like side projects you've done, or just actually on the side, like I don't know, make a website or something, right? Create like a simple web server with a website, yada yada, make your own sort of personal website, something like that, and go from there. That's a good way to kind of get started.
Yeah, to add on, I totally agree on all those things that Eric said. I think a large part of the basics is the same stuff that we're doing for full time, networking and math applying, making sure your resume is on point, all that kind of stuff. I think resume building in the beginning, it sounds daunting, but the expectation's also different. So don't put too much pressure on that. Um, I think if you've got projects, throw them on. If you don't, definitely pick some up over the summer or something like that, or when you've got some free time over the winter break or whatever. For me, if I could give myself a piece of advice that I wish someone had told me back in the day, back in the sophomore, um, it would be not to feel too pressured into going straight into an internship, because the internship you get now is probably gonna determine the internship you get next. Not necessarily, but it often does, which will then probably determine the thing you get as off once you graduate, and so on and so forth. It not a hard and fast rule, but these things usually build on each other. Um, and so make sure that the kind of internship you do, it's valuable if you know you don't like it, right? If you come over from an internship and you're like, yeah, I didn't like doing that at all, that's as valuable as if you liked it. But if you can make them count, that's the biggest win, rather than just getting an internship for an internship's sake. Things like research, I don't know what majors you're doing, CS and something else potentially. If you can get into some sort of research project or something going on campus, that can give you the same kind of skills as an internship, and you can throw it on your resume as work experience. And it looks pretty darn good if you're doing something valuable. So that can be a good way to add useful things to your resume and gain some cool skills at the same time. So to wrap up, back to what I said, if I could have told myself something, I wish I hadn't done my very first software engineering internship and instead done research on campus over the summer, because I think that would have angled my resume in a different direction, and trying to pull it out of that direction into a new direction, it gets more difficult as you go along, right? So that would be my advice, but don't put too much pressure on it in sophomore year. There's tons of time still, even if it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's really insightful. Thank you. Yeah, I got accepted by like a muser thing like a month ago, but like the professor still hasn't set it up, but that might be happening soon. I don't know.
follow up with him then. I say nag him, be a little bit irritating.
Mhm.
It's been that long.
Yeah.
You've got nothing to lose because you're not doing anything now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think user's pretty good because that is the basically it's like a research thing over the summer, right? You're working with like a professor or a team to do a few things, and then yeah, definitely do that if you can't find an internship too, or if you do find one, if this one seems honestly even better as Tim mentioned.
Yeah, I think they're for the school year too.
Oh, it's part of the school year as well. So you like during the semesters you do it.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. That's something good too. You just because whenever you do things for that, it's just extra bullet points. You just put on your resume, you know. And all those things will help. But yeah, as I mentioned, you're a sophomore, so you have plenty of time. It's like when you're a junior, you should start thinking about it a little bit more. And then when you're a senior, it's like, oh man, you gotta find a job or else I don't know, right?
Yeah, then the pressure's on.
Yeah, then the pressure's on.
And you better and I feel that the double stress is if it's an internship for 3 months, so what? You don't like it, it's only 3 months.
Yeah.
Job, you better like it or at least be able to deal with it for a while. It's a bit more of a commitment and you're moving to a new place and all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Eric, I had a question
Yeah,
more
sure.
directed to you specifically as someone doing back end at DoorDash. What do you I don't know if you've given it much thought, what you sort of see as your next steps career-wise, progression-wise? Where do you think, where are you considering ending up and what do you think that might look like?
For me personally, I quite like it here at DoorDash. I enjoy doing sort of like this back-end engineering work. So at least for the time being, just progressing my skills in this domain and just becoming a more skilled and senior level engineer. Yeah. So that might not be the case for everybody. I know a lot of people like to switch around a lot of times or like switch companies. That's very popular in tech, right? You go to a company for years, you go to another one, jump around, get a new whatever signing bonus, yada yada yada. For me personally, like I quite enjoy my time with DoorDash. It's a very team dependent thing, you know. That's with every